Welcome to What's in the Box, episodes of horror with Donna and Eric. I'm Donna,
And I'm Eric.
and today we are going to talk about Frankenstein. I'm just going to share my screen here so you can see the movies that we watched. Our last episode was the book, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. So now we watched 5 movies, and we're going to talk about the movies, compare them to each other and to the book.
So
So
really,
yeah,
the only one of these movies is even remotely comparable to the book.
yeah. And I'm curious if we think it's the same one.
Well, 3/4 of it's Mary Shelley's Frankenstein,
Yeah. Yep.
and then it goes off the rails. So,
Yeah.
but we can talk about that whenever we want to get to that point.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was your favorite of these 5?
Um, I'm gonna have to say my favorite was Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of overwhelms all of them. But
Yeah,
let's say it's not. Let's say Young Frankenstein doesn't exist because it's so brilliant. Even if you didn't know anything about Frankenstein, it's a funny movie.
yeah.
But so let's say we take that off the board and say out of the other 4, which one was your favorite?
I gotta go with the Mary Shelley's Frankenstein with De Niro. Um, I don't know, maybe I'm just more of a modern movie type of person.
I
Um,
totally get that.
you know,
Yeah, no,
um,
I would probably lean towards Curse of Frankenstein. I enjoyed that one. That's a good Hammer one, and I thought Peter Cushing was really good in it. So
yeah, yeah. Um, the Curse of Frankenstein, I found really interesting. I was looking on Google, and apparently the scene where he throws the girl in the water was considered way too disturbing to show.
mhm.
So they like edited it out, um, and they didn't show that part. And it kind of cracked me up because I'm like, that's pretty much how all the people that were born in the 60s and 70s learned how to swim. Someone just threw us in the water. So that's like not disturbing to me. Um, but what would have been disturbing if I had maybe seen this as a kid would be the father walking through the center of town with the dead girl. Like people
Yeah,
back in that time, because it came out in 58, right? So, or
yeah,
57.
yeah. And the big thing with it was that it was giving us these classic horror, but it was in color for the first time.
Yeah.
So you were seeing the blood, and they really play up to that in the early horror Hammer stuff. You get a lot of that just bright red blood. When
Hmm.
we see it today, we don't think anything of it because it looks cartoonish to us.
Yeah.
But back then, it was considered, cutting edge, and him as the monster itself was pretty brutal too,
Yeah. Yeah. He was pretty,
comparative to the original.
yeah, the others. So the original, the 1931 with Boris Karloff, it's your typical blockhead type. That's the word I use for Frankenstein. Blockhead type looking Frankenstein monster. But when you get to the Curse of Frankenstein, it's a really disturbing looking monster,
Mhm.
similar to the way they say it was so disturbing and horrific to look at in the book.
Yeah, it makes more sense,
Yeah,
um, the way he would have reacted in the book if that's the kind of thing you're dealing with.
yeah,
Yeah, for sure. It was the most horrific of the creatures is in
yeah,
in Curse of Frankenstein.
yeah,
Um, the 31 Universal, it's a cool movie. It's fun to watch. You can obviously tell it's based off of a screen, like a stage play,
yeah,
but Dracula was too. And
yep.
so, you're a little limited with some of the way that they do things in that. But I thought overall, and what's funny is how much of it I thought I knew, but watching it, I was like, oh, that's different than I remember.
Hmm.
So now I'm thinking, is everything that I know about Frankenstein based off of Young Frankenstein?
Right.
And so I even went
Yeah,
and looked up the Igor and found out that they don't even use that name until later in Universal's, like the third and fourth, fifth Frankenstein movies, Son of Frankenstein, all those are where Igor, the actual name Igor, kind of
yeah,
comes from.
yeah, because it
But
was Fritz in
yeah,
the in
it's so ingrained in our head though that that's the name. Now
yeah.
he looks just like Fritz and he acts just like Fritz, the Igors that we think of. And I
Hmm.
guess maybe we just always assumed that Fritz was Igor.
Yeah,
Or
or
is it
Igor.
Felix? I was for some reason I was thinking it was Felix, but yeah, Fritz or Felix or whatever it
Fritz.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, Igor's great. And everything about
Yeah.
Young Frankenstein is great. So
Yeah. Yeah. And Fritz is the same person who played Renfield
yeah,
in the Dracula
Dracula, which is
from
really cool.
yeah.
Because he kind of cornered the crazy
Yeah.
part for them, and he
The
did a really good
crazy.
job in both. You
Yep.
know,
Yeah,
Like,
he was the highlight of that movie for me.
yeah, I don't. It was fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
I
mean,
was
I get why people love it, but I
yeah.
also at the same time in my head, I'd much rather watch Curse of Frankenstein or Young Frankenstein.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
if I was, and I know the one that we're supposed to say the worst one is Frankenstein 80 because I mean it's not good, but I hated Mary Shelley's Frankenstein the most out of all these. Just
Really?
couldn't. Oh boy, I can't
Yeah.
wait to get to however you want to deep dive that one. I did
Yeah.
not. I didn't enjoy any of it really. Although
Yeah.
I did while we were watching it, I was able to see because actually Dawn watched that one with me, and so I mean that tells you all you need to know there. Because like I said, she won't watch a horror movie, but she sat through that, and we I would be able to say, okay, that's a little different from the book, or this is pretty close to the book. This is the only one that has the captain character,
Hmm.
but
Yep.
none of it's like written that the guy what was it Aiden Quinn
Hmm.
or Adrian Quinn, whatever his name is, he's the captain, and that's not the same captain in the book. The captain in the book was way more in tune with his feelings and less masculine, less
Yeah.
in command.
Oh
The
yeah, for
character
sure.
in the movie was way stronger, which I like.
Yeah.
I got that. I thought it felt better. It felt like
Hmm.
more natural as we were doing it compared to the book itself. Because the book it felt like she'd never talked to a sea captain before.
Right.
So this one at least felt better. I didn't. I thought Mary Shelley Frankenstein was completely miscast. I think that was my biggest problem, and I also I didn't think they did a very good job acting, and I
Yeah.
hated the direction. And it's funny because he's directs stuff all the time that I like. He's the director of Thor. He's doing those. I think he does all the Agatha Christie movies. I think he's the director when he plays Perot.
Hmm.
Um, I think he's a really good director, but I did not enjoy the choices. The spinning, it's so much spinning in that movie. A lot
Hmm.
of that twirling when they're and it's like I didn't get it, why he
Yeah.
was coming at us with it at the certain times that he did. And I felt he fell flat as Frankenstein, and I didn't like De Niro as the monster at all.
Yeah. So Frankenstein 80, I watched it on Tubi. I think that's the only
Yeah,
place it is.
that's it. Yeah. So it's dubbed. So that's something against it.
Oh, see, I didn't even notice it was dubbed. Because I
Yeah.
could barely see it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. We have a
it
copy that was like a steady cam or a hand cam
yeah,
filming somebody's VCR copy. Yeah, that's kind of
yeah.
what we get.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
it's like 1972 it came
Hmm.
out. And when it first starts off like I was thankful that it actually brightened up later on in the movie because the first like 10 minutes I'm like I don't even know what's going on. I can't see. But you're exactly right. It looks like somebody because the credits are all like cut off.
Hmm.
So it's like somebody was recording it with one of those jumbo shoulder camcorders from back in the day, and
I'm
then that's
surprised we didn't see a hand come up with popcorn or something like that while we were
yeah,
watching.
yeah. So that's the version that was the version that Tubi got. So I don't know if that's the only
It's
version
in the
out.
public domain in the
Uh,
US, and that might be why they use that version because it's public domain stuff. But it's an old
uh,
Italian movie. It makes absolutely no sense.
yeah.
And
I
yet it's still like I mean it makes no sense. And that why is Frankenstein killing women like the way it's like they created Frankenstein and he just goes around killing women and raping women.
so
So
I
it
was
almost
yeah, I was asked how it was, and I said it was a typical 3B 1970s horror.
yeah.
Blood, boobs, and bad acting.
Yeah. I mean honestly, it is the worst of these, but
Yeah.
I guess I wasn't upset or surprised by how bad it was. But I watching Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I felt first off, I thought it felt like they were trying to rip off the Dracula movie we watched.
Yeah,
It really does have that vibe. So it's like they almost cut it and filmed it so that it would mirror that movie because it was so popular.
right.
I'm pretty sure Frankenstein came out like a year or two after that one did, the
Yeah.
Dracula one. But I just thought their performances fell flat. Now that being said, when we get to the characters, I do have some positive things about it. But
Yeah. The
I
one thing I can say about Frankenstein 80 is I did like the concept of it. So the
yeah,
whole concept of Frankenstein 80 isn't necessarily that Frankenstein made this monster. The concept is Frankenstein, the monster, his body keeps rejecting the parts that he gets. So he has to keep killing to get fresh parts to replace. And that's the whole thing with the stolen serum, because
mhm.
Frankenstein steals the serum to try to get his monster to stop rejecting the body parts. So I thought that was a really cool twist on the whole Frankenstein thing.
Yeah. The only
Um,
thing that didn't make sense is that the Frankenstein monster was going around like Jack the Ripper and
yeah,
murdering prostitutes and strippers,
yeah.
and
And
then sexually assaulting people,
yeah,
and even
let's
tried to
talk.
do the girl, the
Yeah,
daughter or the niece,
the
or
niece or whatever
yeah,
guard. So let's talk about the stripper scene in that movie. Was that not the most awkward, depressing
yeah,
stripping
yeah,
scene?
yeah.
Like, I'm like, okay, I can understand that maybe if you're a stripper, you don't really, you may not be in the best part, time of your life. Not saying stripping is a bad profession. I'm just saying, some people get into stripping just they have no choice, right? But this stripper, it was like zero energy. It was so awkward. She just kind of like twirled around her stockings.
Hmm.
And
And
then,
it didn't it feel like it was on the stage of like a schoolroom cafeteria,
yes,
and so it
yes.
didn't make it. It just, yeah, everything about it was real creepy, and you're just like,
Yeah. And I was just like, she had like no energy. It was like she was on tranquilizers or something. And then she just goes to her dressing room and rips off her eyelashes, like her fake eyelashes. So it's like,
yeah, it was really weird. And then immediately is attacked and
yeah,
murdered and groped by
yeah.
what did he call it? He had a name. It was oh, it wasn't Frankenstein. It was some like Mobius or
I can't remember.
Mosaic. Mosaic was the
Mosaic.
name of the
Yeah,
monster. Yeah. And so they kept
yeah,
calling him Mosaic and stuff. I don't know.
yeah,
But yeah, it was definitely something you would expect to see, some exploitation film from the 70s. And so it kind of did
yeah,
what it was supposed to do. I have a
yeah.
feeling they had a a percentage of the movie needed to have nudity, and that's why we have that awful stripping scene because
Yeah, because that was
yeah.
just awful. And then the butcher, I'll say butcheress, the woman,
Wasn't that weird too though? She's like a
she's
fully
like, yeah, she's fully clothed, and all of a sudden she's got no clothes. Like
right, as she's stumbling around, like whole
her,
sections of clothing would be ripped off in the weirdest ways.
yeah,
It was
like from
very
these big
odd.
sides of meat that's hanging up in the
Yeah.
freezer.
And also
Like,
like her shirt would blow off. And it was like, wait, she's got like all those buttons and the jacket.
yeah,
It just didn't make sense. But very funny on that aspect of it. I mean, it
yeah,
was exactly what we thought we were gonna get, I think. It's a cool poster.
yeah,
You could tell that they thought they were being cutting edge with some of the close-up first person perspective shots,
yeah,
when the people were talking. Um, but yeah, I mean, obviously, worst movie out of all five of these.
yeah,
So,
yeah. And
but
not just quality wise, but like movie script acting wise.
yeah, it was bare bones, pretty
And
much.
every single woman screamed the exact same way. Like, is that like how they taught them to scream in the 70s actresses? Like,
Yeah, and who knows, it could have been the same screen just being piped over
no,
or
yeah,
whatever they were doing too. But yeah, they were very extreme with the scream.
yeah. And Young Frankenstein, I mean, you can't say nothing bad about Gene Wilder.
Yeah, he's
Yeah,
perfect. He
yeah,
plays the
yeah.
insanity is there. You can see it. The
Mm-hmm.
monster's perfect. Igor is sarcastic and
Yeah.
hilarious. I liked the additions they made in this one, and that's another thing that I hated about Mary Shelley's Frankenstein was the liberties they took. But in
Mm-hmm.
Young Frankenstein, everything they did since they made it, since he's the grandson, we have enough time passed, we can have new characters and we don't have to really focus on the other stuff.
Yeah.
Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, she 3/4 of the way in, they go off the rails in my head. They could have done other things, but they decided to try and jam Bride of Frankenstein in at the end. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, that was too much for me. I was like, no, 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 no.
I
And
just
then,
thought I just thought De Niro was terrible. And part of the reason maybe because he's so ingrained as the gangster,
mhm,
that's kind of all you see. So they had he has the gangster snarl because of the way the makeup is on his face. And it's just his delivery just is very wooden. And I guess maybe that's what he was going for, but it just, he didn't get lost in the character. That's a
no,
problem with a Frankenstein, I think, which is probably why it's great that all the other Frankensteins were unknown.
yeah,
Really, they're all at the beginning of their careers, or they're under all that makeup and stuff. I found all the other Frankensteins to be more believable in the traditional movie way that we've all come to understand what Frankenstein is. I understand that they had to make De Niro's character. I mean, they made it more like the book character. I
yeah,
just don't like. I just didn't. And I think that at the time, people rejected him as the monster because that movie didn't do very well.
yeah. And again, like he he wasn't that horrifying to look at.
Yeah, it really wasn't. And by the time we got to the end, he was just a guy with a bunch of scars.
Yeah,
He wasn't pieced together. Although,
yeah.
they tried to do it with the different eye colors and um
Yeah.
but yeah, but is there a scene in that one where he takes his clothes off and the lady starts screaming? Is that the one that has that?
No,
No, that's Frankenstein 80
that's
when he strips
Frankenstein
off and
8
he go, yeah. How
when
about
he's in
that?
the
That
prostitute. He's with the
completely makes no sense.
prostitute.
He takes money, pays the prostitute, sex with the prostitute, and then
Kills the
doesn't, and then he
prostitute.
kills the prostitute. I was just like, that's just weird that he went through that whole process when we
Yeah.
know what the end game was going to be because of all the other. So it was just that's a weird thing sticking out of that one, Frankenstein 80. So
Yeah, and that makes him like, the fact that he knows what money is and what a
yeah, yeah,
prostitute is kind of makes it more like, okay, kind of the intelligence of the book character,
yeah. We
you
needed
know?
to know a little bit more about the backstory of what he was trying to do, the doctor trying to do with this creature and where he got all the parts from.
Yeah.
Because all the movies point us towards the idea that the parts retain some of the good or evil of the participant and then it passes on to the new creature. At
Yeah,
least that's what they all
especially
seem to be.
yeah, especially in Young Frankenstein. You gave me, I don't know, some Abby normal.
So good. When he asks him to sit down, no, no,
Yeah.
no, the chair, sit in the chair.
Yeah.
Let's talk about this. You got the right brain? And he's like, no. So it's just so funny. I liked
Yeah.
how he did that one, and I liked yeah, and even Mary Shelley's Frankenstein does a good job of trying to show us the damage of the brain, being an issue. So
Yeah. Yeah. So that's our posters. The most eye-catching poster to me, I have to say, is Frankenstein 80 and Young Frankenstein.
yeah,
I think those two posters are really
the 31, I mean that one, that's what you expect the movies posters to kind of look like,
yeah.
from the 30s. So I get that. There are a ton of better Curse of Frankenstein posters that have come out with the DVDs and all that stuff. So I think though this is one of the ones that would have been early. And plus, you have the stuff that came out in the UK and then the stuff that comes out in the US. They're
Yeah.
always a little different edits,
Hmm.
better posters, change their names, things like that. But the boy, if that Mary Shelley's Frankenstein doesn't scream 90s, mid 90s movie, I mean that
Yeah.
it looks like I can think of Mimic,
Yep.
even Event Horizon,
Species.
Species, yeah, all
Species.
of those
Yep.
have that the same color choices and the look.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yeah, and I was funny because the way you said it was trying to like mirror Bram Stoker's Dracula, it cracks me up because it's like Bram Stoker's Dracula, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, you
yeah, it
know?
felt like this was a theme they were going to try and lean
Yeah.
into. But I feel like this one did so bad that they stopped because I don't remember anything coming out. I mean, they did Wolf with Michelle Pfeiffer and Jack Nicholson, and that would have been in '90s. But I think that
Yeah,
might have been before, might have been
yeah.
early '90s. So
Here's our Frankensteins. This is from 1931. And his name was not Victor, his name was Henry.
yeah, I always think that was funny too, how
Victor
some of
was
them
the
changed.
friend. Yeah, Victor was the friend or whatever.
I'd love
There
to
was,
see the play to see if
yeah,
they just copied it completely from the play or just some aspects of it, because it does feel like they might have done that in the names of the characters on the stage.
yeah. And this is from the Hammer version, 1958. Um,
He
Victor
was a
Frankenstein.
victor,
Yep.
and
What
I'm
got
pretty
me,
sure. Oh, what were you
um,
saying?
I was going to say, what got me about this particular movie is it starts off with Paul coming, and Victor is a young teenager. And then all of a sudden, Victor is this age, but Paul is the same age as him. But yet, when they first introduced Paul, Victor was like 13, 14, around there, and Paul was an adult.
Yeah, like his tutor.
Yeah,
I think they threw some gray in his hair to
yeah,
make it seem like he was a little older, but yeah, for sure. I
yeah.
mean, there was no way to get around that, I guess, back then. But out of all of these, I felt Peter Cushing was the most entertaining because he was
Hmm.
the most villainous.
Yeah,
He didn't have any issue making the monster and ruining people's lives and
and
whatever,
killing,
Yeah.
throwing Justine into the room with the monster because she told him she was pregnant with his kid because there he is having an affair with
Yeah.
the maid. So he was definitely more villainous than any of the other Frankensteins.
But
Well,
he
except
was
for the one from 80, because the Frankenstein 80, even though he didn't like his monster was the one killing all the people, although he did kill the
He did kill the doctor who found out he stole the serum
yeah,
and
the doctor. I took his
took his
eyes,
eyes
yeah.
to put in the monster. The only time that Frankenstein got upset was when the monster attacked him, and he said, "Well, I have to kill you now because you attacked me." And then the monster finishes him off.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that guy, but he also isn't. He's not really a part of the story, other
No.
than feeding and the monster in that one is the actual monster. So
Yeah.
um I think Gene Wilder's character is really good, Frankenstein. Um,
Frankenstein.
yeah, until he changes it, he finally
Yeah.
accepts who he is.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's he does a good job too. He buys into the crazy and sells it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. And then we
I,
have
I
this guy
I
here
just
from
thought he was flat. I just really did. It was almost like he was he felt more like the way Mary Shelley wrote everything. He was so almost light and breezy about everything.
yeah.
And the one part I did get happy about was when he immediately sees the monster have the issues and then gets tangled in the chains. He immediately goes, "What have I done? I need to destroy it, be done with this. I made a mistake." He
Yeah.
immediately figures it out. All the other ones seem to have been 100% into, continuing with what they were doing.
Yeah. What's going on? Because they in the Hammer movie they brought the first thing they brought back to life was a puppy.
Yeah, and that puppy was 100% just a puppy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which I thought
Yeah.
was funny. This isn't a puppy put together. And of
Yeah.
course, the size of that puppy was not, it doesn't jive with what she explained and what he explains in the movies and how the thing needs to be so much bigger so that it can
Yeah.
handle the stress of being reanimated. This thing was the size of, you could hold it in one hand. It needed
Hmm.
to be like a Saint Bernard or something if they were going
Yeah.
to really do it. And,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I enjoy Peter Cushing in the Frankenstein role. He is he's got this weird charisma
Hmm.
where when he does play a bad guy, it really comes across as super villainous and almost off-putting because
Yeah.
he's usually always the good guy.
Yeah.
I
He's what I would imagine Victor Frankenstein to look like.
Yeah, and although I did enjoy the guy from the '30s,
Yeah.
I thought he did a really good job too. And I swear, I was surprised when the monster immediately moves and he's like, "Oh, it's alive," because I in my head I have the thing of from Young Frankenstein, how it doesn't work, and then it's later that they discover that the
Hmm.
creature's moving. So I was a little surprised. I was like, man, it's just like the book though with that original Frankenstein. I know I've seen that, but I was
Yeah.
like, I didn't remember half of it.
And
But
I
in
like
the,
1931 because they had the castle. Because
yeah,
everybody else, you always hear it's Frankenstein's castle, and they actually had
yeah.
a
Now
castle type place.
in Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, they captured the room and they gave us a room that actually made sense for
Yep.
regenerating a body. Um, Don's question was when he goes to reanimate the bride, was where did he get the fluid from that he had been
Right.
collecting to do the first one, So, and that was a good point too. It seemed like while they gave us a whole bunch more of the science behind it or what they thought, would work on camera, it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense for him to be that quick to be able to. Now, I guess you could say because he was supposed to reanimate the lady for the original bride, he's going to reanimate it. Maybe he collected it for that. And we just didn't get to see it, but the
Mm,
timelines weren't meshing up properly. In the
right.
book, it's months and he's in a different location.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, he's going to do this in his attic. That doesn't make sense. He's got family
Yeah.
downstairs
Yeah.
and he's going to be dragging in bodies and stuff. So,
Yeah. And when he was in the Ingolstadt, um, and he was bringing the monster to life, and the thing blew up and all the liquid went everywhere, all I could think of was, you never have a waterbed on the third floor.
right. Right. Yeah. I was like, the landlord is going to be coming any minute and asking
Yep.
what the heck's going on. What's
I'm
that
like,
smell?
yep. I'm like, isn't the people downstairs like, because okay, this is what, 1700? I'm pretty sure it's not that great construction because it's not a it's not
Right.
a nice residence. So it's immediately going through the floorboards downstairs. Like, why isn't nobody running upstairs going, what the hell is going on up here? You
Yeah, and I
know?
guess probably the cholera is what he uses as the excuse of why there was
Uh,
nobody else around. But
yeah, that's true too.
if I was gonna pick, I like Peter Cushing's um Frankenstein probably the most.
Hmm.
But I mean Gene Wilder's like 1B because he's just so
Yeah.
amazing. I love him. It does I could
Yeah.
watch him do anything. So
Yeah,
those are
me
my two
too.
favorite. And then I go to 31. And then I guess I could give it to Kenneth, but I mean I'm tied with the 80s guy because I just didn't like either one.
Yeah, I think pretty much I'm in the
And what's
same.
amazing, I just so many things about it. By the time we got done with it, I was just like apologizing because she did watch it with me. So I'm sorry that you watched this one out of all of them. So
So now we have Elizabeth, of course, who was
now one of these isn't an Elizabeth, but she's the most like Elizabeth in the
yeah,
Frankenstein 80, so I threw her on there, Sophie.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I thought I thought this character was handled in a fun way in almost all the movies.
yeah.
Like I didn't step away thinking like it wasn't like when we did Dracula and I was so upset how they um did the character in Francis Ford Coppola's version, how they'd taken away her strength and stuff.
Hmm. Yeah,
I didn't feel like that in any of these. I mean, I know she's not a front and center character in the book, but I thought each one of these women captured the proper vibe relationship with Victor in each movie.
yeah. See, that's funny because the Helena Bottom Connor, her Elizabeth kind of irked me because I didn't think she was true to the Elizabeth in the book. She
I oh
was,
I'll give you
you
that.
know,
I will give you that because she is a little more uh
effervescent and bubbly and happy. Like the Elizabeth in the book was more mellow and melancholy. And even though it all went about she was always described as bringing joy to their house, she still seemed to be like
restrained.
restrained and just, level-headed and proper
Yeah,
for
and then
that
I will
time
tell you this:
period.
the way she played Ophelia in his Hamlet, that with Mel Gibson, would probably have been a better version of Elizabeth in this movie. If you've ever seen Branagh when he did Hamlet, I think that was the 91 maybe. So it would have been before this one, and she plays Ophelia, and she plays it in the way that probably would have reflected Elizabeth better.
Yeah.
But you're right; she's a little tad bit. Not only is she a little bit bubbly in times, and I guess that's supposed to represent the love that they are starting to have. Now let me tell you, I love in the book cousins, okay, we know what's going on. I don't need them talking about being brothers and sisters while they're French kissing and stuff. You know what I mean? I
Yeah,
thought that was a
yeah,
little weird. This is a
yeah.
little heavy-handed right there.
Are you
Let's
my
put it,
are you my sister?
yeah.
Like,
How
ew.
should I deal with my sister as he's like groping her and stuff? It's like, no, no, we can go with cousins. That we all knew what was going on. So,
Yeah,
but then,
because here you don't really know what's going on
yeah,
because it
you really
never
don't.
really shows how Elizabeth.
Yeah, it does at the
Well,
beginning.
no,
It
they do
just
at the beginning. You're
they
right.
give
You're
you like
right. Okay.
one sentence, but it's really not. It's one of those things where they have a time jump too, and so you forget about it. In
Yeah.
the book, you get that steady hand of them
Yeah.
growing up, and the other thing that was a problem in the movie that's not in the book is that William being born and Victor's age isn't
Yeah.
so visually disproportionate. So it's
Yeah.
hard to believe that he's whatever age they're trying to sell us while they have this little kid being born with the mother.
Yeah.
That didn't make sense. But in the book, of course, you have the timeline. It's a little easier to follow.
Yeah. And the mom didn't die in childbirth in the book either. The mom died because Elizabeth got scarlet fever, I think it
Yeah,
was, and she took care of Elizabeth. And then she got scarlet fever and she ended up dying from it. So
right.
she didn't die in childbirth. And of course, they were missing the whole middle brother, Ernest.
Yeah, which I get. When you start
Yeah.
doing movies, and that one wasn't, it was 2 hours and 3 minutes, I think, which was
Yeah.
the longest of all five of the movies, was definitely Mary Shelley's.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, another character or two would have probably been, it just would have been too bloated.
Yeah, and I get why they left out Ernest because again, he didn't really have a big part in the book either.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think my favorite Elizabeth is from The Hammer.
Yeah, I
Um,
thought she was really good. She
yeah,
she played that because I mean, in the book, she's 100% committed to whatever Victor wants.
yeah,
She doesn't question it. I mean, that's one thing, like you said, she even though she was really bubbly and stuff, the Mary Shelley character, she at the end was like, "You didn't choose me, so I'm leaving." You didn't get that vibe from any of the other ones.
yeah,
I guess you kind of do from Madeline Kahn, but that's because that's written that way. But
yeah. I loved her. Oh, darling, I'm gonna miss you. Oh, don't kiss me. No, the
yes, yeah,
lipstick. I'm going to a party. Oh, don't touch my hair. Yeah,
yes. She's just I love her. So
yeah,
again, that's why Young Frankenstein should be number one. It's because it's the cast is amazing and it's so well written, and you don't even have to know anything to enjoy all the jokes because they were there's so many different just normal jokes that you could get. So
yeah. And it's funny as I'm watching Young Frankenstein, I'm like, this isn't really as like it's funny and the characters are hilarious and, there's jokes in there, but I almost thought that the comedy was kind of secondary. It was just a really good movie,
yeah,
you know.
every choice they made was really the right choice, which rarely happens,
Yeah.
especially in the older movies. There's usually something glaring that bothers you. This one is done so well. Even the fact that they mirror the black and white and film
Hmm.
it that way is just genius. So they
Yep.
can capture that vibe and the special effects and mimic some of the other stuff. I thought it was cool that they got the original um, equipment from the 31 because there's a little thank you at the beginning of the movie. Well,
Yep.
thank you for providing the special effects equipment or whatever. So they had all the machines from his for bringing the monster alive or whatever.
Yeah. I
I
think
thought
that
that's
was.
cool because a lot of those, think those movies in the 30s, they weren't saving stuff. They were recycling
Well,
it or
yeah, I was
repairing.
just gonna say, like, I'm surprised it was still around all those years later.
Yeah, it's weird because it's like they never thought that this stuff would be worth money or something. You
Yeah.
know, there was no collector's thing, I guess, at the time when they were doing it, so they didn't keep anything. So
Yeah.
I guess the
And
worst one would be Sophie because she's really
yeah.
not a real character. Because again, they don't follow any of the storyline. Victor isn't anything. Victor
Yeah.
Frankenstein has nothing to do with that other than the fact that he's reanimated some sort of psycho killer, and that's his
Yeah.
niece. That was funny
Kind
though.
of. It's
When
not
the
even
month,
really his niece. He
yeah, you're
kind
right.
of
It's
I,
the same situation as Elizabeth
Elizabeth. Yeah.
took over after the parents died. But it was funny when the monster comes in, just walks in while they're having dinner, and
Yeah.
just immediately starts to try to attack her.
Yeah.
But I thought also during the dinner scene, I was telling Dawn, I was like, they cut the food 1,000 times, but never once did that fork come near their mouth. Did you notice that? They
Yeah.
never did because at Young Frankenstein, they're actually eating when they're doing the
Hmm.
thing. So I just thought it was funny. That guy was just moving food on his plate. He never picked it up until the monster showed up.
Yeah. Well, maybe they didn't. Maybe it wasn't real food.
I know. I was thinking there's got to be a reason that's not getting up. It's all gross. Yeah, I agree
Yeah.
with you though. I think Hammer's Elizabeth was the best.
Yeah.
And I probably would say Universal next, even though she didn't have a big part in the Universal thing.
Yeah.
She had more of a she filled the Elizabeth shoes better, I think. And
Yeah.
again, what did we get from the 90s? We get this manipulation of the characters. I wonder if they tried to make her more front and center, more of her own, free will kind of thing, just because they're using 90s sensibilities on these characters written in the 1700s or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got our monster here. Um, I gotta say my favorite one here is from the Hammer, just because he's the most grotesque.
Yeah.
These two, De Niro and then from Frankenstein 80, just look like men with scars.
At
Um,
least De Niro had two color eyes. This guy's got the same color. They
yeah.
didn't pitch in.
And then you
Um,
have your Herman Munster type
as,
blockhead, like I like to
I
say,
know, but he looks so
Frankenstein.
cool right there, and he was
Yeah,
cool in the
yeah,
movie. I would say he's probably my second.
yeah. And
And
then you
Peter
have the one
Boyle,
from Young Frankenstein.
and he's so funny. Did you? And I love the zipper that they
Hmm.
instead of having stitches as a zipper on his neck and
Yeah,
sets his finger on fire and just all the fun different things they did with him. And the two or three times that he did the deadpan stare into the camera, like when the girl says, "What else should we throw in the water?" and he stares at the camera like because we all know where it's
yeah,
going. And then I
yeah,
thought that was funny how they changed that, flip that on her head, and throw it, have it so she sits on the seesaw and gets thrown into the room. And but yeah,
yeah.
for sure, I agree. Christopher Lee. That's what I love about Christopher Lee because he's such a nowadays we would think of him as such like the big actor, and he had all these great parts in Lord of the Rings and Star Wars, and he's just the what is it, Willy Wonka's dad in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory that
Hmm.
Burton does as the thing, and he's been in a lot of different things, but when he started he was almost always the monster. He's the mummy. He gets Frankenstein. Well, I know we didn't like him as Dracula as much, and we kind of thought, and that was kind of silly. But he always plays these parts, and I think he always does a really good job. And I like
Yeah.
that he started that, and then he builds into this and shows off his acting chops in other movies.
Hmm.
He's one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes. He did a series. They're made for TV, but in the '80s, he's like an old Sherlock Holmes after he's retired. And then the dude from the Avengers, the old TV show, The Avengers, the guy with the bowler hat,
Yeah.
he plays Watson. And it's two different movies that are like 4 hours, like a mini series kind of thing. So he's one of my favorite Sherlock Holmes too. He's just a great actor. I really enjoy everything he does.
Right. Yeah, I love the part with in Young Frankenstein where he's with the blind guy and he gets the hot soup
Uh,
poured on him and he gets
so
his
funny. And he's
finger.
moving the bowl back and forth, trying to catch it. I mean, it's just everything
And
so
then
subtle.
you just see at the end he's just like, I am out of here.
Yeah,
He's
even
like,
when they're doing he wants to do the toast and they slam the glass together and it breaks his and
breaks.
he just looks back into the camera like I'm done. It's
Yeah.
just such a well-directed film. And it's so funny. I was saying to Don, I was like, can you imagine? I mean, he not only did he if you wrote Young Frankenstein, I mean, that would be enough. Really. I mean, you would think. And he's done so many other amazing movies and projects and stuff that are just as brilliant as Young Frankenstein. But it is almost perfect. You could die after writing Young Frankenstein and directing it. So
Yeah. Yeah. Now, you didn't like the Frankenstein 80 mosaic? That's a cool name. Um,
yeah, but I mean,
yeah.
he's fine. I mean, he
Yeah.
really came
I
across
know.
as Frankenstein, and he was like,
Yeah.
kind of shuffling around, super strong.
Yeah.
But
I
honestly, you just don't know
He was
enough
always
about.
going after the strippers and the prostitutes
Yeah.
and the butcher.
And how weird was that? He goes, and the first prostitute's like, "Get away from me, because you're creeping me out." And another one comes out of the darkness, like, "I'll take you home." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, this is okay. I think they probably would have had their radar, the
Yeah.
bad dude, don't take him home kind of thing going. But
Yeah. But like I said in the beginning of the episode, I thought the whole like premise was pretty cool with the he has to keep killing because his body keeps rejecting the parts and he has to keep getting new parts. Um, So I thought that was pretty cool.
Five,
But
10 minutes of a like a opening scene that explained why he was this way would have fixed most of those problems that we have.
yeah.
And I think it would have been, I could see that being remade today
Hmm.
and being much better. So I
Yeah.
get
So
what they
the
did though. I understand. It's a 70s Italian movie, horror movie. We know what those are supposed to be, and they delivered on what those are supposed to be. So, but
yeah,
yeah, you're right. The premise is very interesting, and it would be fun to see it remade.
yeah. And then the
I did
friend, the
assistant slash
assistant.
friend because
Yeah.
the book is a friend, but not really helping. But
Right.
in the movies, these are the guys that kind of help him get on the right path to making the bodies.
Yeah, because they in the book he like doesn't want anybody to know what he's doing.
Right. Yeah, he's horrified by it. He doesn't want to
Yeah.
explain it to anybody. And in every movie, except for the um, Frankenstein 80, he's very open with what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. So we have Fritz, Dwight Fry, love him.
yeah, he was
Um,
good.
yeah. And then we have Paul, who was the tutor slash mentor.
And I guess he kind of was the Henry character too, kind of pushed together,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
taking care of
And
everybody and stuff.
yeah, and then we have an actual Henry Clerval. Um,
He's my favorite part of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I thought he knocked it out of the ballpark. He was
yeah.
the best part of that movie to me. Every time he was on screen, I enjoyed it. Of course, I'm a
Yeah.
big fan of his. So
Yeah. And that's the only movie that had a Henry Clerval
yeah, yeah,
because in Universal's Frankenstein, the friend was Victor.
yeah.
The doctor was Henry Frankenstein. And then of course, Paul, and then we have Igor or Igor.
Oh, it's so funny when he asks him, why isn't it Froderick?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you heard wrong. He's perfect. He's so perfect in this movie.
Yeah. Walk this way. No, really, here, take this.
Yeah.
Walk this way.
And it's funny when he realizes what he's doing, like 4 steps into it, and he's like, shakes his
Yeah.
head and stands up. But no,
Yeah.
I thought the guy that played Henry, he's the thing that at least when he came on, I found all of his scenes to be enjoyable and worked. They all work. He played the
Yeah.
character. He's kind of a womanizer. He's kind of in it for the wrong reasons, with the doctor stuff, but he's a good friend and he's an enjoyable character. And he's also not, he's really the mirror opposite of what we kind of think of with the other characters. He's not a
Yeah.
he's not a dirtbag or anything.
No, I really felt when I was watching the 1931 version and Frankenstein was like, okay, go out there and cut that body down. And he makes poor Fritz, who's hunchback and can't walk very well, makes him climb up this pole and cut down this body. I'm like, he's gonna
Yeah.
fall and hurt himself.
And he hops down really well too.
Yeah,
He was very athletic for the
yeah.
character that the stuff they needed him
Well,
to
it's
do.
funny because when he was climbing the pole, I'm like, oh, he climbed that very well. But I was just like, I found it funny that he's acting this hunchback person to
Yeah.
like climb up a pole to cut down a body.
And I get why he needed the assistant, but like you said, when we read the book, we were kind of confused by the whole thing. Where's his helper and all that stuff? Because the stuff he's doing in the book would require, and it even showed it when they go to reanimate another body, the bride for Frankenstein's monster. He has his entire household helping him put up all the equipment and stuff. So
Yeah,
it takes more people. So there should have been some assistance. So
yeah. But my favorite one was the Henry Clerval, and then I'd say Igor, then
yeah,
Henry, and then
yeah, for sure. He steals the show, but the
yeah,
other guy just as an actor and as the only thing that I really didn't come away upset about with that Mary Shelley Frankenstein. He didn't do anything that ever made me just question what was going on.
yeah. The
I threw these on here
Burgomaster,
just the cops, the different police officers, since each one
yeah.
had one. I actually had to go find the frame of the guy up in the top corner coming to tell Victor that they caught the killer because
Mhm.
he's not in IMDb for some reason. the
Hmm.
youngest one up in the corner.
Yeah, that's
And
funny.
he's only on the film for what, 2 minutes maybe, talking about the riot and stuff, and he's not very efficient as the police,
Right.
but everybody else had an interesting role,
Mm.
and pretty much everyone else just led a riot.
Yeah.
The two guys on my left, I guess, there, and then the guy you've got highlighted there. I assumed he was the police because that's who he was talking to, but maybe he was. Is he maybe a lawyer? He was something that he was confessing to try and get him to convince everyone that he wasn't, insane,
Yeah. Yeah.
which didn't work
Back
because
I think back in the era that was it's kind of all the same like constable kind of,
yeah.
you know, thing here.
I
Then they
thought the guy from the 80, Frankenstein 80, was hilarious because he stopped smoking until they
yeah.
solved the murder. And that's the last scene we get. As soon as they capture or the monster dies because his brain rejects itself, his lackey sticks a cigarette in his mouth and lights it. And then he
Yeah.
starts. I was like, even that was, I just thought it was clever for
Yeah.
that kind of movie. It ended
Hmm.
with the right tone, I thought.
Yeah.
So, yeah, these characters really are inconsequential, but I thought they all seemed to be a common theme throughout the movies that I throw them on there,
Yeah. And then we have the father.
which we only
Um,
had in two movies,
yeah.
which I thought was
I
weird.
did not enjoy this one.
Terrible
From
character.
terrible, terrible, terrible. Like, yeah, I did not enjoy him. He was just,
He's exactly what you would picture a father from that. Actually, he's what you picture a father from like the 20s and 30s to be like, but
yeah,
he's in that period where, that other time period, he's very just, and just nothing about him added to the story.
yeah. He was just, yeah. And
And
the
then the
whole,
other,
what's the thing that he was saying? What was the thing that he was talking about? Oh, I placed a crown of whatever flowers on the mom when they married. Remember right before the wedding, he was
yeah,
talking to
vaguely.
Victor or Henry, whatever. Um, and he had the flowers for the boutonnieres, and then they had like
Yeah.
the crown of flowers for the bride. And I'm like, how are those flowers still around 30 years later?
Yeah, yeah, that doesn't. Some of that didn't make any sense, but I guess that was trying to drive home the sentimental connection
Yeah,
these two were supposed to have, but they didn't capture it very well in the 31. But I guess Shelley's Frankenstein, they did in that one. The father is a central driving
yeah,
force. He's
yeah.
the you can tell there's a love there
Mm-hmm.
between him and his children,
Yep.
adopted and sired. And so, and of course, he's a great actor. I mean, you're not gonna, he's fine, but at the
Yeah.
same time, you know, I don't know. I didn't like. I just didn't like the movie, so I don't know. But he was fine.
I just didn't like the movie. Supporting
I
cast.
just these were different characters that kind of kept popping up, but they didn't really have a. There wasn't enough of them in the five
Yeah.
movies to, because that's although technically two of them are, I think, the Doctor,
Mm-hmm.
the one from 31, and then John Cleese.
Yeah.
I thought John Cleese was really good too in that movie,
Yeah.
and
This was like almost the main character of Frankenstein
right,
80, the the
yeah, he was the reporter.
the reporter dude that
Yeah,
ended up having like with Sophie. I think if I remember correctly, his sister dies because the serum goes missing and he's
yeah,
trying to find out. And it cracks me up how the cops are just like, sure, you just go ahead and investigate and just let us know what you
and
find out.
then they brought him on to like two of the scenes, like,
Yeah,
hey, we're
yeah,
here,
yeah,
help us find clues and stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
he was he kept the story moving forward.
yeah,
And like you said, it's an interesting premise. Everything about it was fine. It was very low budget. It's not like I couldn't imagine anybody going into that movie expecting a bunch, and it's fine for what it was. But yeah,
yeah,
he's the main character, and you really didn't need the Doctor other than the fact that he was, like you said, replenishing parts for the guy.
yeah.
The only one to give us a captain was, Mary Shelley's, and I thought he did
Hmm.
really good with the captain. And that is an interesting premise, a good way to begin and end the movie, kind
Yeah,
of bookend it so that we have kind of like the book, but
Hmm.
also kind of give us a good start and end, and it seals it, so we don't really have to be. We're not threatened with a sequel,
Right.
that we'd have to sit through.
Yeah, seeing that guy though, I kept visualizing in my head. I'm sure you've seen the movie Warlock.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So not Adrian Sands' character, the other guy. I forget what
Oh yeah,
his
the guy that
name
was
is.
chasing him. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I know who you're talking about.
I just kept visualizing him in that role. And I know it's totally not the same actor, but it just
Oh yeah, no, the other actor, he was also in Hudson Hawk
yeah.
and a whole bunch of other things. I know who you're talking about. I wish I could think of his name. I can only think of
Yeah.
Julian Sands' name,
Yeah.
but
Uh,
um, but yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. He captures the same vibe.
yeah.
That rugged, long-haired, dark-haired
Hmm.
guy. Um, and he was, like I said, different than the book, but he did well enough to, that kind of was interesting. Although it opens with them killing the Huskies, so Don was like,
Yeah.
what have you got me into? So, but yeah, it was fine. I think the best character on here though is the Terry Garr,
Yeah.
as the assistant, which is funny too with that, a female assistant to do all the stuff that was supposed to be what Igor was there for, right?
Hmm.
But he's like, oh, here's an assistant for you, and I guess the from 31, the doctor, he was fine.
Yeah.
Um, but he was just kind of there. There was nothing big there. So
And then of course I forget what her last Frau.
Frau Brulin or something like, no,
Bru-
Frau. Oh, they said it so many times to get the
uh,
horses to go crazy, and I can't think of what
yeah.
it is either.
Yeah. She's like, I'm going to set you free because, of course, the premise on this movie is she was the grandfather's love interest or
Right.
something like that. Yeah.
Girlfriend, because she said
Girlfriend.
Victor was my
My
boyfriend,
boyfriend. Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
pushes the monster into the electric field, and then he gets caught on fire and runs away. So
Yeah.
yeah, but yeah, no, she's really good in that movie too.
Yeah. She's,
Perfect cast in Young Frankenstein.
yeah. He's like putting his stuff away and then she's like making out with the painting.
Saying goodnight to it.
Yep.
Yeah, very funny. And then the old man, there was three old men, so I figured
Yep.
I had them in with the other just supporting, but then
Hmm.
there was three of them and no room on that thing for more pictures, so I thought I'd throw them out there. I don't
Yeah.
remember an old man in, um,
80? No,
yeah,
not in
but there would have
80.
been one in, there should have been one in 31. Did I just miss it?
No, there was not one in 31.
So then maybe that comes back to, maybe that's from another one that we don't know, like Bride of Frankenstein. Maybe he sees the blind one there.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
because
they all
this
play
was,
their very important role. And of course, the
yeah.
only one that does anything remotely close to the book is the guy with the recorder,
Hmm.
and their family teaches Robert De Niro's creature how to speak.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
this one here in Hammers, I was like, so the premise of this scene here with this particular old man is he's walking with his grandson, I guess, and he sits down and then he loses his walking stick and the Frankenstein monster comes up. Now he's blind, he can't see. So he's like, "Hey," he thinks it's his grandson, I guess, and says, "Give me can you find my stick for me? I lost it." But then he starts freaking out for no reason apparently. Because Frankenstein like makes no noises. He doesn't, or the monster doesn't make any noises, doesn't like grab the guy or anything like that. And then all of a sudden he's like, maybe the thought behind that scene was maybe he just thought it was some kind of robber or something.
yeah, or maybe it's the sense that we get from the book. Remember,
Mm,
Frankenstein is so horrible that they immediately want to reject him. So
yeah,
maybe that's kind of what they were going for, that kind of vibe. Which you
yeah,
don't get in the De Niro one, although you kind of do. I mean, the blind man's cool with them, but then the family runs in and just starts whooping on him with a stick,
yeah. And
which
that,
doesn't make sense to me, because why didn't the father say, "Hey, no, this isn't the guy that attacked
right?
me.
Right? It was
This
the
is the guy that
landlord,
saved me."
or hey,
Yeah,
why don't you stop it? And then what cracks me up too is they're poor, but immediately they can pack up and leave.
not only that, I told Dawn, I said, if we are ever in a situation where we're digging up food and we can't do it, and then the next day there's like a ton of food that's been dug up. We're leaving because obviously the place is haunted and we need to go. You know what I mean? They didn't.
Yeah,
I mean, the guy was like, "We need to figure out what happened," but everybody else is like, "No, we'll just eat the food. We're not
it's
going
the
to worry
nice
about it."
spirit of the woods or
Right?
whatever was
Yeah.
on the
No,
sign.
totally done there. You're going to tell me
Uh,
the spirit of the woods is doing something. I'm like, we can leave. We need to go.
yeah,
So I thought that was funny too. But yeah, but the whole point of the family in the book is that they're upper class. They're
it did.
French
Yeah.
and he learns how to speak French and he learns all that stuff when they teach the bride to be that comes to meet up with him, the
Hmm.
guy that's on the lam. So they teach him all of these ideas on philosophy and all the other stuff. And you're right, this is a poor family that's just trying to get by. Obviously they know how to read and write because they're teaching the kid how to read and write, but it's not like there's anything there that would make that monster sophisticated enough, which I think you lose that when he shows up to tell Victor that he wants another character. We don't
Yeah.
get the really cool scene of them talking to each other where he almost convinces Victor to create it, not out of a sense of whatever, like he has to do it. He does it because he feels that it's the right thing to do because this
Yeah.
creature is able to articulate to him why he wants the other character, the
Yeah.
the companion. You don't
Yeah.
get that at all because they don't give us any of that kind of setup. So,
Yeah.
which I understand that it's a limited time, it's a movie, but at this, it just didn't make any sense, and it doesn't add to any reason why you would ever feel anything for the creature
Hmm.
like you do when you read it. You can kind of be on the side of the creature and understand where he's coming from. In the movie, he's just really kind of just a dick running
Yeah.
around because he doesn't get his way.
Yeah. So yeah. So
Although he
that's
didn't kill Henry, that's a big thing, which I thought they would do. They
Hmm.
could have killed Henry and tried to pin it on Victor. That to me would have been 10 times better than them trying to do the reanimation of the woman, him refusing to do it, and then immediately getting married, and then them killing Elizabeth, and then him going crazy and trying to pet cemetery as his wife. This is exactly what
Yeah.
we got there.
Yeah.
And of course, just enough damage done that he had to sew up her face so that she was, I was like, that wasn't necessary. And then I don't know, just the ending of it. And then her realizing that she's a monster and setting herself on fire with apparently jet fuel because
Yeah.
everything went up like in a second. I thought that was kind of funny as she
Yeah.
ran through the house. I was like, well, how is she getting everything to blow up like that?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. It made no sense, like you said, because the monster, the original monster, was an amalgam of all these different body parts from all these different people, but she was whole. So she didn't need a brain. She already had one. She didn't need like her face cut open and her hair shaved.
I under her hair burn off because she got caught on fire. I got that part, but all the scars and the pinchedness around the eyes and stuff that didn't make
Yeah.
sense because they
Yeah.
put her whole head on the body of the blonde girl that had been hanging to get her heart, and then put her hands on that blonde girl so that he could have her touch. But the rest of it was all the one girl. But there was no reason to mess with her face,
Yeah.
and so and then De Niro's character, it was basically De Niro and a leg because he had the peg leg when they hung him,
Yeah.
and then the eye, they fixed the eye, but other than that it seemed like most of it was him too. So I get it, it's a movie. I didn't enjoy that one, and maybe
Yeah.
that's it. Maybe I just didn't enjoy 90s take on classical movies.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I liked it because I thought it was the most close to the book.
yeah, 100% it is the closest to the book. I just didn't like the casting or the direction or any of the things that would make it a movie. So um although I will tell you, I did enjoy the score. I think it had the best score of the
Mm,
three of the five. I don't remember any music in the Italian one, but the other four, they had that classic old school violin. So Young Frankenstein's playing off of the older stuff, but I
yeah.
did enjoy the score from Mary Shelley. So
Yeah.
I will tell you this. I think I enjoyed the five of them collectively. I enjoyed doing this more than the Dracula one.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't know.
Yeah. What are you gonna say? So what we can take away from this is our seemingly our favorite was Young Frankenstein.
And that was our favorite. Mel Brooks was our favorite, I think, in the Dracula too. And I understand why.
Yeah,
I mean, they're humorous, they're funny, they're good as by themselves.
yeah.
So,
And then
but
the most closest to the book is the 90s version.
yeah, and in fact, I don't think it wasn't like Francis Ford Coppola's where I thought it really skewed away from some of the stuff when they did that movie. I mean, I thought this one was tried to stay until the very end. Like,
Yeah,
three-fourths of that movie is the book, and then the end just it's just like they decided to go wild ass with it. So,
yeah.
but yeah, no, I agree with that. But now, my favorite to sit down if I'm going to sit down and watch another one and watch it over again is going to be Curse of Frankenstein because I've seen that one a couple of times and I do enjoy watch. And I can't actually it makes me want to go and watch the other like I think there's like 7 total that Hammer put out, and I think Peter Cushing's in 6 of them.
Oh wow.
So
Yeah.
I definitely want to sit down and watch because I know I haven't seen all of those. I've seen a few of them, but I don't think I've seen God. I think there's one called God Created Woman or something like that, or Frankenstein Created Woman, and I think that's the 4th or 5th one. So, and there's one
Yeah.
other one I haven't seen.
Yeah, the only one I had seen prior to watching them for this is Young Frankenstein. I hadn't seen any of the others, even the 90s version, which is kind of weird. Um,
It's I remember it coming out and thinking I'm not going to see it in the 90s, and then I've never had the desire to watch it.
to watch it until I
And
said,
I
"Hey,
was
how about we watch it?"
well, no, and I totally agreed with you. It definitely had the one, especially after we read it. It had the vibe of this is going to be one that follows the book. Um, so I'm glad we did watch it. I was just
Yeah,
upset though that it wasn't really on anything that we could have streamed it. We had to
yeah,
pay for it. I think it just now got put on Paramount Plus, but I don't have Paramount Plus, so
yeah. And at least we both picked a winner because you picked Argento's Dracula with
oh,
the
I know,
giant,
so terrible, so
the
terrible.
mantis, the praying
Yeah,
mantis, and I
actually,
picked.
I think you picked a much better one. I enjoy. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it was terrible, but I mean, I wasn't. I enjoyed it. We talked. I bet you we go back and look at this. We talked a lot about different aspects of that movie.
And there
That
was no
and a
giant praying
pause.
mantis
Yeah,
in this one.
yeah. Thank God they didn't have CGI. Who knows what they would have put in there? But
Oh gosh,
uh,
yeah,
no, I
crazy.
thought it was fun. It was fun to see how many movies were based on Frankenstein. I mean, we could have gone. I can think of 4 or 5 more movies just now.
Yeah,
That we could grab that are weird science and different things that were kind of based on the idea loosely, and we could really keep deep diving it. I didn't feel that way when we finished Dracula. I was kind of happy we were done, but I could easily have us do another group. But I know what we're going to do next is going to be just as fun. So actually, probably
yeah,
better. So,
yeah. I can't wait for that. So yeah, so that's our take on these movies. Let us know if you agree or disagree
or
down
if
in
you
the
have a favorite
comments.
Frankenstein that we didn't talk about that we
Yeah,
should watch, maybe there's one out there that's just like the book that we've never heard of. So,
yeah, yeah, for sure. Let us know. We'll definitely check it out. So yeah, and now it's time for our Not Stephen King book of the week. And this week I've chosen nothing to do with Frankenstein, but I chose The Rue by Alan Baxter. Um, I picked up this book because of the tagline on the front, "See you out back," because obviously it takes place in Australia. Um, and then it's about a killer kangaroo. Who doesn't want to read about that? Um, so I picked it up. I used to never read like introductions or forewords to books. I kind of
mhm.
would just like skim them and then just like get into the story. But I read the introduction to this book or the foreword. I can't remember which. What's the difference? And it was hilarious. It told about how Alan Baxter came up with the concept for this story. He was at a pub with some friends and they were like daring him to do it or something like that. It was just hilarious how he explains how he came up with the concept for this book. So basically, it's this outback town, and there's this killer kangaroo running around killing people. And it turns out it was someone who was trying to get back at another person, a woman, and she kind of like created this, summoned a demon, and it got into the kangaroo. Um, so it's a fun book. It's not very long. It was my first ever Alan Baxter book, and I kind of just became a fan of his after I read it. So if you like animal horror, this is a fun one to check out. Um,
I
it's
love the
just,
cover
yeah, the cover's great.
and the
Uh,
idea, the concept is fun.
yeah,
So,
and spoilers, obviously. Sorry, I should have said that in the beginning, but you don't get to that until like towards the end, and then you're like, oh my God, that makes perfect sense than just this random like evil killer kangaroo.
yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so, and if you know anything about the Outback, I'm not an expert, but some of the towns in the Outback are pretty isolated.
Yeah.
They're small and there's just not anything close around. So it's not like they can just call the police and, the SWAT's going to show up or, the army or whatever to save them from this kangaroo. They kind of have to handle it themselves. So yeah, if you like animal horror, definitely check out The Roo by Alan Baxter. We'll have a link to it down in the description. And thank you for joining us.
Take it easy.